My parents called me laughing to thank me for their wedding present. The sheer audacity of that phone call still makes the ice in my veins burn. The present, the one they were so gleefully celebrating, was the complete annihilation of my future. They had just sold my $480,000 apartment from under me to pay for my sister Alicia's $300,000 wedding. They told me, with absolute, cold indifference, that I had 30 days to get out, to vanish from the life I had built. But in their arrogance, in their blind focus on their golden child's shallow status, they made one fatal, crushing mistake. They completely forgot who was secretly paying the mortgage on their own house. Before I tell you how this betrayal ends, how I used their pathetic secret to bring their entire crumbling empire down, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And if you have ever been the responsible child who gets taken for granted, the one whose strength is mistaken for stupidity, hit that like and subscribe button. You are going to want to see the glorious, final scene of this demolition. My name is Amani Washington, and I am 29 years old. My entire world is built on cold, hard certainty, on code, on logic, and on clean design. As a senior UI/UX designer for a major tech firm in Atlanta, my days are structured by deadlines, critical client presentations, and the calm, rational flow of problem solving. My condo in Buckhead was more than property. It was my sanctuary. Every minimalist piece of furniture, every neutral color palette was a deliberate, necessary barrier against the chaos of my toxic family. That chaos, of course, was currently blowing up my phone with a horrifying urgency. I was in the middle of a critical Zoom presentation with a new client from California. My screen was shared, my voice was calm and professional, and I was walking them through the user flow wireframes for their new app. Meanwhile, my phone, set to silent, was lighting up like a frantic, desperate Christmas tree. "Mom," flashed across the screen. I ignored it. "Biz Mom," the screen screamed. I shifted subtly, trying to maintain focus on the damning data point I was presenting. Then, Alicia, followed again by, "Biz Mom." It quickly escalated to 10 missed calls. The client, Mr. Harrison, paused, his voice betraying his annoyance. "Amani, is everything all right on your end? You seem distracted." My face flushed hot with the humiliation of my exposed, messy family. "My apologies, Mr. Harrison. Just a family matter. Please let me step away for 30 seconds. I hit the mute button on my mic and camera, snatched the vibrating phone off my desk, and stumbled into the hallway. "Mom, I am in a major client presentation. This better be an emergency," I hissed, my voice a furious, low whisper. The sound that came back was not an emergency. It was laughter. Loud, giddy, celebratory laughter underscored by the unmistakable pop of a champagne cork and celebratory music. "Amani, sweetie, guess what?" It was my mother, Denise, sounding utterly ecstatic. Then my sister Alicia, the 7-year-old golden child influencer, screamed into the phone. "We did it, Mani. We booked the Street Regis, the grand ballroom. Can you believe it?" I pinched the bridge of my nose, every bit of my patience gone. "Okay, great. I have to go." "No, wait. Mom got back on the line, the cruelty in her voice masked by forced sweetness. "That's not even the best part. It's all thanks to you, baby, thank you. You're a lifesaver." A cold, dreadful feeling started in my stomach, turning the champagne celebration into something deeply, sickeningly corrosive. "Thanks for what? What are you talking about? I didn't approve any transfer," I demanded, my professional cool shattering. My mother laughed, that airy, dismissive laugh she used when she thought I was being hysterical or silly. "Oh, don't be dramatic. I sold your Buckhead condo, sweetie. The sale closed this morning. We got a fantastic price, $480,000. A cash offer. Can you believe it?" Her voice beamed with false pride. "It's more than enough for the street. Regis deposit and Alicia's couture dress fund. Isn't that wonderful?" The hallway started to spin around me. I leaned against the wall, my hand shaking violently. My condo. "Mom, what are you talking about? You can't. My name is on the deed. You can't just sell it." My mother's voice, the voice of a 5-year-old real estate agent who knew every dirty loophole in the system, suddenly lost its bubbly warmth. It turned cold, sharp, and utterly condescending. "Oh no, baby. You must be misremembering. Our names are on the deed. My name and your father's. Your name isn't on it anywhere. You just contributed to the payments. Legally, Amani, it was our property to sell, and we needed it for your sister. She's getting married, for heaven's sake." I couldn't breathe. The realization, the $90,000 down payment from my first big bonus. The 60 straight months of documented mortgage payments, all stolen, utterly invalid. "Mom," I whispered, the words choked with disbelief and terror. "Where am I supposed to live?" "Anyway," she continued, cruelly ignoring my plea. "The new owners are very generous. A nice white couple. They're giving you a full 30 days to move all your things out. We have to go, baby. The wedding planner is here with the floral samples. We'll celebrate this weekend. Talk later. Love you." A hard final click. The line went dead. I stood there, frozen in the hallway of the very apartment that was no longer mine. On my laptop screen in the next room, I could faintly hear Mr. Harrison's disembodied voice. "Imani, are you still with us? Did we lose you?" I stared at the wall. The initial shock was rapidly hardening, crystallizing into something cold, sharp, and crushingly heavy. Pure, concentrated rage. They had finally decisively pushed me too far. The war had just begun. I didn't say goodbye to Mr. Harrison. I didn't apologize or reschedule. I just clicked end meeting on the Zoom call. The laptop screen went dark, reflecting my own stunned, blank face, a face stripped clean of all trust. My beautiful, quiet living room suddenly felt like a movie set, completely unreal. The soft gray sofa, the abstract art, the faint smell of my expensive candle, it wasn't mine. It was all a lie. 30 days. They gave me 30 days to pack up 5 years of my sweat, my discipline, my life. My mind reeled back, trying to locate the exact damning moment the trap was set. It wasn't hard to find. My mind reeled back, tracing the sickening thread of the deception. It was 5 years ago, and I was 24, high on life, having just landed my first major promotion at the tech firm. I had $90,000 in the bank, money I had clawed for. A mix of scholarship refunds I'd obsessively saved, every performance bonus, and cash from freelance web design gigs I took in college instead of sleeping. I was so proud, ready to buy my first place, my own hard-won piece of Atlanta. I showed my parents the listing for this very condo, my sanctuary. My mother, Denise, had smiled, but it was that tight, predatory real estate agent smile that never reached her cold eyes. "Oh, Buckhead is ambitious, Imani," she'd said, sipping her sweet tea. My father, Marcus, just nodded along, looking concerned, already setting the hook. "Honey, your credit is still new," he said in that gentle, worried tone he always used just before asking for something disastrous. "You're 24. Getting a jumbo loan in this neighborhood is tough. The bank will see you as a risk." I told them I didn't need a jumbo loan. I told them I had the $90,000 for the down payment and the pre-approval letter. But my mother placed her hand on mine, performing the role of the supportive parent. "Sweetie, I know you're smart, but let us help you. Let your dad and me co-sign. We have established credit. It will make the whole process smoother. It's just a formality. Of course. Just paperwork to get it all pushed through. A formality." That's what she called the legal maneuver that stripped me of every right. And I, like the naive, idiotic child I desperately wanted to stop being, was grateful. I thought they were finally supporting me, finally seeing me as an equal, a capable adult. I transferred the $90,000 directly to the escrow account. I signed the papers they told me to sign, and then the bills came, and I paid them. Every single month for 60 straight months. The mortgage, the HOA fees, the property taxes. I never missed a payment. I never asked them for a dime. I was Imani, the responsible one. I was building my equity, or so I pathetically thought. Now, 5 years later, it all made perfect, sickening sense. This was never about my credit. It was always, coldly, about their asset. This was the long con. Because my sister Alicia was always the one who needed help. Alicia, who got a brand new white BMW convertible for her 18th birthday, while I had to buy my own 10-year-old Honda Civic with my own tutoring money. Alicia, who dropped out of Spelman after 2 semesters to become a full-time influencer, which really meant my parents paid for her high-rise apartment in Midtown and her endless brunches. I remembered screaming at my mother about it once, the sheer unfairness tearing me apart. Why does she get everything handed to her while I have to bleed for every single thing I own? My mother's face had hardened, and she'd pulled that classic, toxic line, the one designed to silence me, the responsible one, the one who didn't fit her delicate mold. Because Alicia is sensitive, Imani. The world is hard on a beautiful, delicate girl like her. She needs our protection. You're different. You're strong. You can handle it. She was right about one thing and one thing only: I am strong. But she had fatally mistaken my strength for stupidity. She thought I was a workhorse she could just ride until I collapsed. She thought I was a savings account she could just drain at will for her real daughter. They had just stolen $480,000 from me, my down payment, my mortgage payments, my life, and they thought I would just handle it. The ice in my veins wasn't despair anymore. It was pure, focused, absolute rage. I grabbed my car keys from the bowl by the door, the metal cold and hard in my shaking hand. I wasn't going to pack. I was going to war. The drive to their house in Alpharetta was a red, blinding blur. I don't remember the traffic on the 400. I don't remember signaling. I just remember my hands gripping the steering wheel of my pathetic Honda Civic so hard that my knuckles were stark white. The same Honda Civic I had bought myself at 19 because my parents were too busy putting a down payment on Alicia's new BMW. I pulled into their pristine driveway, skidding slightly on the clean, perfect pavers. Their house was the symbol of their arrogance, a 2-story brick colonial, sitting on a perfect green lawn in a neighborhood that screamed status to all my mother's church friends. It was the house that represented the respectability she always craved. I didn't knock. I didn't ring the bell. I used my old key and burst through the front door, screaming the question that ripped my life apart. Where is she? My father, Marcus, was exactly where I knew he would be. He was in the den, sitting in his worn leather recliner, the television blaring a football game, already safe in his cocoon of masculine indifference. He looked up, annoyed by the intrusion. "Amani, what on earth? You're going to let all the cold air in. You sold my house." I screamed it, the sound raw and desperate, echoing in the high-ceiling foyer. "You let her sell my house." My father sighed, that deep, put-upon sigh he always used when I was being difficult and emotional. He picked up the remote and lowered the volume, but he couldn't even give me his full, undivided attention for this atrocity. "Amani, lower your voice," he said, not looking at me. Asterisk, don't come into this house acting crazy. We did what was best for the family." Best for the family? I was shaking now, unable to control the violent tremor of my body. "That was my money. That was my home. How could you just give it to her?" "Don't be dramatic," he snapped, finally showing a flash of anger, but not at the theft, only at my challenging them. "It's just a condo. Your sister needs this. Alicia is getting married. Do you understand what that means? This boy, Chad, his family is important. They have status. This is a huge opportunity for all of us. She deserves a beautiful wedding. She deserves it. She deserves it at my expense." I shot back, the words laced with cold fury. "And what about me? What do I deserve, Dad? To be homeless?" "You'll be fine," he mumbled, waving his hand dismissively, sealing my fate with his casual cruelty. "You're smart. You make good money with that computer stuff. You'll land on your feet. You always do. That was it. That was my prize for being the strong one. My brutal, unfeeling punishment for being responsible. I am calling a lawyer," I said, my voice dropping, becoming as cold and sharp as the rage that was settling deep in my stomach. "I am calling a lawyer, and I am suing you both. This is theft. You stole from me." "A lawyer," the voice came from the top of the grand staircase, delivered with the theatrical drama of a queen descending upon her subjects. It was my mother, Denise. She was in a plush, cream-colored silk robe, her hair wrapped perfectly in a towel, looking like she had just stepped out of an expensive spa, completely untouched by the catastrophe she created. She slowly descended the stairs, one hand gliding along the polished banister, savoring the moment of my breakdown. "A lawyer," she repeated, tasting the word like it was something ridiculous. She actually laughed, a short, sharp, ugly sound of complete contempt. "Is that what you said? Amani? You're going to sue your father and me? The people who raised you? The people who put a roof over your head?" "You didn't put a roof over my head," I shot back, the denial burning with righteous anger. "I've been paying for my own roof for 5 years, and you just sold it." She reached the bottom of the stairs and stopped, looking at me with something between pity and icy contempt. "Go ahead, baby. Call your little lawyer. Spend the money. He's going to look at the paperwork and tell you the exact same thing I'm telling you now. The deed of trust has my name and your father's name on it. Your name is nowhere to be found. But the payments, the down payment. I have the bank records," I insisted, grasping at the last shreds of objective truth. "Oh, sweetie, that's so naive," she said, stepping into the living room, dismissing my entire adult life's work. "Any money you contributed was rent, Rent you paid to live in our property. As far as the law is concerned, you were a tenant. An ambitious one, I'll give you that, but a tenant nonetheless. She walked over to my father, picked up a magazine from the side table, and delivered the definitive, sickening blow with the cold precision of a professional. I am a licensed real estate professional, Amani. I have been in this business for 25 years. I read every line of the fine print. I know exactly what I am doing. You were a risk. We protected the asset. And now that asset is going to be liquidated to fund something more important, your sister's future. I just stood there, speechless, the blind rage completely gone. It had been replaced by a terrifying, cold, crushing understanding. This wasn't a crime of passion or a desperate, impulsive decision. This was a strategy, a long-term, calculated plan. They had been fattening me up for 5 years, slowly draining my money and building a legal fortress around the asset, just for this final slaughter. My mother looked up from the magazine, her eyes completely void of any human emotion. You've made your scene. Now go home and start packing your things. The new owners are very eager to move in, and I'd hate to have them file for an eviction. That would look so messy. The next morning, I was sitting in a sleek downtown law office. Across the desk sat Tariq James, the one person I knew who was potentially smarter about complex systems than I was. I had emailed him scans of every document I had, the mortgage statements, the $90,000 wire transfer, the 60 straight months of bank records showing payments from my account. I sat there, vibrating with a cold, clear rage, desperately waiting for him to tell me how we were going to crush them, how we would dismantle my mother's perfect legal cage. Tariq did not look at me. He was staring intently at his second monitor, scrolling through the damning closing documents from 5 years ago. He let out a long, slow breath and leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples, a gesture of absolute defeat. Amani, he said, and his voice was utterly flat. That sound alone made my stomach drop into a pit of despair. They got you, he finally whispered. They got you good. What are you talking about? I demanded, my voice sharp, desperate. I have the records. I paid the down payment. I paid the mortgage. Every single month. It is my money. Tariq shook his head, looking genuinely pained for the fool I had become. It doesn't matter what you paid, Amani. It matters what you signed. And 5 years ago, you signed a closing packet that lists your parents, Marcus and Denise Washington, as the sole owners on the deed of trust. Your name isn't on the title. Legally, you are not the owner. You never were. But the payments, I insisted, my voice rising in raw, terrified panic. The $90,000, that's wire fraud. It's not, he said, cutting me off gently, brutally. It's her word against yours. That's what this is. We can file a lawsuit, absolutely. We can argue for a constructive trust. Claim. You were the de facto owner, but Amani, it will be a bloodbath. Think about it. Your mother is a professional real estate broker. She knew exactly what she was doing. The moment we file, she will countersue. She will claim the $90,000 was a gift from a grateful daughter. She will claim the 6 years of mortgage payments were rent. Just rent you were paying to live in their investment property. Rent? I scoffed, clinging to the ludicrous reality. Who pays rent and a $90,000 down payment? They'll say it was a deposit, Tariq said, shrugging helplessly. They'll say it was back rent. They'll say whatever they want. And honestly, a judge might believe them. This won't be quick, Amani. This will take years. It will cost you $50,000, maybe $60,000 in legal fees. And at the end of it all, a judge might just say, it's a family matter, and refuse to get involved. You might not get a dime back, and you'll be broke from the legal fees. My stomach felt like it was full of wet, sinking cement. So that's it? They just win? They steal $500,000 from me, and they just win? As if summoned by the sickening finality of my defeat, my phone buzzed violently on the glass desk. A new email. The subject line was cold, professional, and utterly personal. Official notice 1422 Buckhead Terrace Unit 12B. My hand was shaking as I opened it. It was from a law firm I had never heard of, a legal attack dog hired by the new owners. On behalf of the new owners, Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, we hereby serve this official legal notice to vacate the premises within 30 days by October 28th. Failure to comply will result in formal eviction proceedings. I slid the phone across the desk to Tariq. He read it and cursed softly under his breath. They're not even waiting, he said, his voice grim. They're playing hardball. I stood up, my body feeling numb, heavy, filled with sinking lead. I wasn't just betrayed. I wasn't just robbed. I was a fool. My mother had not just stolen from me. She had proven she was smarter than me. She had weaponized my trust, my work ethic, and my desperate, pathetic love against me. And she had done it perfectly. I walked out of Tariq's sleek office in a daze, got into my cheap Honda Civic, and just sat there in the parking garage. The notice to vacate was burning on my phone screen. I was officially homeless in 30 days. I had lost $500,000. And just when I thought the humiliation, the sheer crushing weight of my foolishness, couldn't possibly get any deeper, my phone lit up again. It was a new text message from Mom. "Hi, sweetie. Just a reminder, don't forget about our big celebration dinner tonight, 7 p.m. at the Street Regis at that amazing steakhouse. Alicia and Chad are so excited. We have so much to celebrate. Don't be late." A celebration. They weren't just robbing me. They were inviting me to the party they were throwing with my own money. They wanted me to sit there, quiet and defeated, and smile while they toasted to my complete destruction. I showed up at 7 p.m. The steakhouse at the street. Regis was the kind of place that made you feel poor just by breathing the expensive, rarefied air. The ceilings were 2 stories high, all dark wood and blinding crystal chandeliers. Men in suits and women in cocktail dresses murmured over plates of food that cost more than my car payment. I was wearing the clothes I had worn to Tariq's office, black slacks and a silk blouse. I felt like a server who had tragically wandered off shift. They were already seated at a large circular booth in the center of the room. My mother, Denise, was holding court, wearing a new, vibrant blue dress. My father, Marcus, was in a suit I'd never seen, looking puffed up and sickeningly important. And then, the golden couple. My sister Alicia was practically glowing, her skin luminous, her 5-carat diamond ring catching the light from every angle. She was draped in a tiny, expensive-looking red dress. Beside her sat Chad Thompson, her 30-year-old fiancé. He was exactly what you'd expect, tall, blonde, with a lazy, arrogant smile that never quite reached his cold eyes. He wore a blue blazer with no tie, the picture of casual, entitled old money. I slid into the booth, the leather sighing under me. "Sorry I'm late," I mumbled. "Oh, Amani, there you are," Alicia squealed, as if she hadn't just helped detonate my entire life. She leaned across the table and squeezed my hand, her rings digging into my skin. "I'm so glad you made it. Oh, honey, you look exhausted. Is the packing just awful? I can't even imagine." Her voice was full of that fake, syrupy concern she used. The implication clear. "Thanks for packing up your life so I can have mine." Before I could even formulate a suitably cold response, Chad, the parasite fiancé, raised his glass of dark liquor to me. "Amani, right? Good to finally meet." He didn't wait for a response. "Listen, I just wanted to say thanks for the contribution." He said the word contribution like he was talking about a pathetic tip I'd left. "I was just telling Alicia," he continued, swirling his drink. "A wedding under $300K just isn't negotiable, you know? Not with my family's friends. It just wouldn't be appropriate. So, it's really great to see your family, chipping in to make it happen." He smiled at me, a flash of self-satisfied white teeth. He was patting me on the head. He was a wealthy white man from a wealthy white family, and he was thanking me, a black woman, for giving up my life savings so he could have the appropriate party. My skin was on fire with shame and fury. I looked to my father, hoping for even a flicker of defense, a spark of conscience. He was beaming. "Isn't it wonderful, Amani?" he boomed, utterly oblivious to the depth of my pain. "Our little Alicia marrying into the Thompson family. What a blessing." My mother just smiled, a cruel queen surveying her successful conquest. She had won. She had secured the alliance. She had bought the social status she'd always craved, using my future as the cold, hard currency. The waiter arrived. "Can I get you a drink, miss?" "A Cabernet," I said, my voice tight with suppressed emotion. "The most expensive one you have. And bring the bottle." For the next hour, I sat there and drank. I drank as they discussed floral arrangements that cost $10,000. I drank as Alicia debated whether her bridesmaids should fly to Paris or Milan for their dress fittings. Every laugh, every toast, every self-congratulatory story was a shovel of dirt on the grave of my old life, and I was being forced to sit and watch the humiliating burial. I finished my 3rd glass of wine. The raw rage and the alcohol were making my head swim. I couldn't sit there anymore. I couldn't watch them celebrate my execution. I stood up abruptly. The table went quiet. "Imani, are you all right?" my mother asked, her brow furrowed in annoyance at my disruption. I looked at her, my vision narrowing. I had one last card to play, one last desperate, pathetic appeal to the woman who was supposedly my mother. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice low, dangerous, and utterly final. I nodded toward the back of the restaurant. "Now, in the ladies' room." My mother followed me into the ladies' room. It was a cold, oppressive space of polished granite and gold fixtures, with soft classical music piping in from hidden speakers. It was as cold and impersonal as a tomb, perfectly reflecting my mother's soul. She crossed her arms, leaning against the polished granite wall, her expensive perfume filling the small, suffocating space. "All right, Imani," she said, her voice sharp and brittle with annoyance. "What is this? You are making a scene out here. Chad is going to think our family is unstable." "Unstable?" I laughed, but the sound was watery, pathetic. "Mom, he thinks I donated my house to his wedding fund. How is that not unstable?" I turned to face her, the desperation and the wine making me bold, knowing this was my last, final chance to appeal to the woman I once believed loved me. "Mom, please," I begged, and I hated the weak, pleading sound of my own voice. "Please stop this. Call the bank. Call the buyers. You're the real estate agent. You can undo this. Say there was a mistake in the paperwork." I stepped closer to her, closing the gap, forcing her to look at the wreckage she created. That was everything I had. That was my $90,000 down payment. That was 5 years of my salary. I will be on the street. I will have nothing. Please, Mom, don't do this to me. My mother just stared at me. Her face didn't soften. She didn't look sad or guilty or conflicted. She just looked bored, like I was a whining child demanding a toy she had already thrown in the trash. She turned to the large, gold-framed mirror and pulled a tube of expensive red lipstick from her clutch. She began to carefully reapply it, watching her own reflection instead of mine, a chilling act of complete indifference. "Don't be so selfish, Imani," she said calmly, her eyes fixed on her own lips. My jaw dropped, my fury spiking again. "Selfish? I'm being selfish? You stole $500,000 from me." "I reallocated a family asset," she corrected, snapping the lipstick tube shut with a cold finality. She finally turned to look at me, her eyes as hard and cold as the marble counter. "You are 29 years old, Imani, and all you have to show for it is one condo and that little computer job. Your sister, on the other hand, is about to enter a dynasty, a legacy. The Thompson family has connections we have only dreamed of. This wedding isn't just a party. It's an establishment. It's about our future. It's about the Washington name finally meaning something in this city." "But what about my name?" I whispered, the pain of physical ache in my chest. "What about my future?" She took a step toward me and actually fixed the collar on my blouse, a sickening parody of a maternal gesture that made my skin crawl. "Your future is to help your family. That has always been your role. You are the strong one. Remember, sometimes one person has to make a sacrifice for the greater good of the family." She gave my collar a final dismissive pat. "This time, Imani, it's you." She pushed past me, the suffocating scent of her perfume trailing behind her, and walked straight out of the bathroom. She left me standing there alone, staring at my own devastated reflection in the mirror. She was right. I was 29, and I was a complete, pathetic fool. I had spent my entire life trying to win the love of a woman who saw me as nothing more than a resource to be drained, a sacrifice to be made. I looked at my face in the mirror. The pleading girl was gone. The desperate daughter was gone. There was nothing left in my eyes at all. Just a cold, empty, echoing silence. I smoothed my blouse, a final act of control, turned, and walked back to the table. I sat down, picked up my wine glass, and smiled at my sister, who was busy showing Chad pictures of flower arrangements on her phone. They didn't even notice I'd been gone. A few days after that humiliating dinner, I was living in a canyon of cardboard boxes. My apartment, my beautiful, stolen apartment, felt alien, hostile. I couldn't stand to be inside it, so I was sitting in my car in the parking garage, the engine off, the air thick and still, scrolling desperately through Zillow looking for a place to live. 27 days. That's how little time I had left. The rental prices made me feel physically sick. A one-bedroom apartment in any decent part of Atlanta was $2,800, $3,000, all requiring first month, last month, and a massive security deposit. I did the math. I didn't have it. My $90,000, my entire life savings was gone. They had taken everything. I would have to cash out my $401k and pay the massive penalty, just to avoid being completely, publicly homeless. Tears of pure, hot frustration started to blur the screen of my phone. And then, my phone rang. The screen lit up. Mom and Alicia. A joint FaceTime call. My stomach clenched with pure revulsion. I let it ring twice. But I knew they would just keep calling, forcing me to participate in their monstrous joy. I wiped my eyes, steeling my resolve, and hit the green button. Their faces exploded onto my screen, beaming, flushed with vicious excitement. Their faces exploded onto my screen, beaming and flushed with vicious excitement. They were somewhere bright white and full of mirrors, a high-end bridal boutique. Alicia was standing on a pedestal, spinning around in a mountain of white lace and sparkling tulle. She looked like a self-satisfied princess, bought and paid for with my agony. "Amani, oh my God, look," she squealed, doing a little twirl. "This is it. This is the one. Isn't it perfect?" My mother was beside her, holding a flute of champagne. "Hi, baby," she said, her voice giddy and sickeningly sweet. "We're just so excited, and we were just talking about you. We just wanted to call and say thank you for the wedding present." Alicia put her hands together in a gesture of fake gratitude, the 5-carat diamond flashing offensively. "Yes, thank you, sis. Thank you for my dress. I love you." They both laughed, a bright, tinkling, horrible sound of pure, unadulterated happiness that came at the cost of my life. They were standing there in a dress that probably cost $20,000, bought with my stolen money, celebrating my ruin. They were thanking me for it, as if I had wrapped my entire future in a bow and willingly handed it to them. I stared at their smiling, happy faces, at the pinnacle of their monstrous entitlement. I didn't say a word. My mother's smile faltered just a little, unable to ignore my silence. "Amani, honey, did you hear us? We said, thank you, for the condo money." I pressed the red end call button. The screen went black. The call was over. And, just like that, the hot, pathetic tears stopped. It was like a switch had been flipped. The hot rage, the sinking despair, the suffocating sadness, it all vanished, replaced by something cold, heavy, and wonderfully solid that settled into my chest. It was ice. I sat in the silence of my car for one full, devastating minute. Then I closed the Zillow app, tossing the pathetic dream of finding a cheap rental. I opened my banking app. I logged in with my Face ID. My checking account balance was dangerously low, but I didn't care. I tapped on bill pay. Then I tapped on scheduled payments. My upcoming payments were listed. My student loan, my car payment, and then there it was, the big one scheduled to be paid in 2 days. The payment I had set up 8 years ago. The one I never missed. The one I never, ever spoke about. The details were there, etched into my phone screen and into my soul. Recipient, Truist Bank. Amount, $4,150. Memo, mortgage account 8849XXX. Property, 1422 Magnolia Drive. 1422 Magnolia Drive. The beautiful, pristine 2-story brick colonial in Alpharetta. The house my mother was so obnoxiously proud of. The house my father sat in, watching football, oblivious and comfortable. The house they were probably sitting in right now, toasting their good fortune and my downfall. The house I had been secretly paying the mortgage on for 8 years. I looked at the payment. I looked at the cardboard boxes piled in my back seat, the pathetic remnants of my stolen life. They had taken my home. So, I took my finger, steady and unwavering, and I pressed the button on the screen. Cancel this payment. A chilling pop-up appeared. Are you sure you want to cancel this payment and all future scheduled payments to this recipient? My hand did not shake. My resolve was absolute. I pressed confirm. I left the parking garage, driving to a small, quiet coffee shop across town. I pulled out my laptop, opened my secure drive, and clicked on a folder I hadn't opened in years. A folder labeled Family Assets. Inside was a series of scanned PDFs and email threads, all dated 8 years ago. I was 21. I had just graduated from Georgia Tech and had been at my first real job for exactly 6 months. I was making $48,000 a year, and it felt like all the money in the world. That's when the first call came. It was my father, sounding utterly broken. He had been laid off from his mid-level management job. He was 50, and in his mind, his life, their status, was over. My mother, with her fledgling real estate career, wasn't making enough to cover their massive, entitled expenses. The pristine brick colonial, the 2 car payments, the country club membership they refused to give up, it was all collapsing. I found the first document, a scanned letter from the bank. The words were large, terrifying, and definitive. Notice of default. The bank was starting foreclosure proceedings on 1422 Magnolia Drive. Then I opened the email. It was from my father's personal account, sent to my new work email at 2:00 the morning. The subject line was just Amani. Amani, my girl, I don't know what to do. The bank is taking the house. Your mother. She's a wreck. She can't face the people at church. She can't face the neighbors. They're going to put a sign on our lawn, Amani. They're going to auction our home. Everything we've worked for, all our dignity, gone. You're the only one, the email continued. You're the smart one. You're the one with the good job. I know you're just starting out, but you're our only hope. I am begging you, Amani, don't let them humiliate us. Please. I promise I will pay back every single cent as soon as I get back on my feet. Please save your family. Save the family. Save the family. That was always my pathetic job. I was the strong one, the responsible one. I didn't even think. I took my entire savings, the $15,000 I had scraped together, and I called their bank. I, a 21-year-old girl, called a mortgage bank and asked to speak to the foreclosure department. I found the next email in the folder. It was from a bank representative, sent to both me and my parents. The subject: Confidential Loan Modification Agreement, 1422 Magnolia Drive. My 21-year-old self had thought she was a hero, a financial savior. My 9-year-old self, sitting in this dark corner of a coffee shop, finally realized the horrible, crushing truth. I had been a fool. I hadn't saved them. I had merely become their secret, silent, perpetual enabler. I looked at the email chain, at the confidential loan modification agreement from 8 years ago. It wasn't really a modification. It was a rescue plan, a secret, private bailout brokered by a desperate, naive 21-year-old girl. The bank had agreed to stop the foreclosure. They agreed to restructure the loan. But they had one absolute, non-negotiable condition. A third-party guarantor had to step in. A third party with a stable, verifiable income had to co-sign the new agreement and assume direct, primary responsibility for the monthly payments. That third party, that pathetic savior, was me. I, at 21 years old, with my 6 months of job history, had agreed. I took my brand new, stable salary and aimed it right at their mortgage. The payment was $4,150, due every single month without fail, for 96 consecutive months. I did the math right there in the coffee shop, scribbling furiously on a napkin, the numbers burning into the paper. 8 years times 12 months times $4,150 equals $398,400. I had secretly paid $398,400 to keep that roof over their entitled heads. And the sickest part? The truly twisted, infuriating part? They forgot. I am certain that at first they were grateful. My father paid me back 3 times small, pathetic amounts before he got his new, lesser job. He said he needed to rebuild his savings. My mother, the realtor, even had the audacity to tell me it was a great investment for my portfolio. But over the years, the entire ugly story changed in their selfish, convenient heads. They told themselves that they had skillfully renegotiated the loan, that the bank had simply lowered their rate out of sheer kindness. My $4,000 monthly payment became invisible. It became background noise. It was just a thing Amani does, a predictable transaction. She's the strong one. She can handle it. That payment, my secret sacrifice, became the invisible, assumed foundation of their entire comfortable, status-obsessed life. It paid for the pristine brick colonial. It paid for their status at church. It paid for their dinner parties. It paid for the very financial stability that allowed my mother to save her own commissions. The commissions she later used to help Alicia buy a BMW. They forgot that I was their bank. They forgot that I was the only reason they had a house at all. And they had just stolen $480,000 from me to pay for a tacky $300,000 party. They didn't just bite the hand that fed them. They sawed it off at the shoulder and laughed about the blood. They thought they had stolen my future. They had no idea they had just personally detonated their own. I closed the laptop. The quiet click of the lid felt as final as a judge's gavel. The 96-month rescue mission was officially, irrevocably over. The first of the month was in 2 days. The bomb was set. All I had to do now was wait for the inevitable explosion. 10 days passed. The first of the month came and went in a blur of packing tape and U-Haul receipts. I was now sitting on the floor of a sterile, overpriced rental apartment in Midtown. The walls were thin and the view was of a parking garage. My old condo, my sanctuary, was gone. I had to cash out a significant portion of my $401k just to cover the deposit and first and last month's rent on this new, miserable place. The financial hit was staggering, and the 30% penalty made my stomach turn with cold regret. I was unpacking a box labeled kitchen when my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Mom. My heart didn't leap. I didn't feel rage or despair. I just felt a cold, heavy sense of inevitability. The second domino was about to fall. I let it ring 3 times, took a calm sip of my coffee, and then I answered, putting it on speaker. Hello? There was no bubbly greeting, no, hi sweetie. Her voice was thin, tight, and confused. Amani, something strange just happened. The bank called. Truist. Oh, I said casually, pulling a coffee mug from the box. Yes, she said, her voice growing rapidly agitated. They said we are 10 days past due on the mortgage. 10 days. Can you believe it? They've never made a mistake like that before. I told them, I said, we have never been late on a payment. It must be some ridiculous computer glitch, some error in their system. I thought maybe you'd know what to do. I looked out the window at the concrete wall of the parking garage. The moment was finally here, the perfect time for the devastating truth. It's not a mistake, Mom, I said calmly, my voice smooth as silk. There was a long, dead pause on the other end of the line. What? She finally said. What do you mean it's not a mistake? I mean, I stopped the payment, I said, unwrapping another mug. I heard a sharp, choked intake of breath on the speakerphone. You stopped paying what? What are you possibly talking about, Amani? You don't pay our mortgage. We do. The ignorance, the deep, profound erasure of my sacrifice from her memory, was almost impressive. No, Mom, I said, and my voice was as clear and sharp as glass. You don't. I do. The mortgage on your house, 1422 Magnolia Drive, the payment of $4,150, the payment that I have personally made every single month on the first for the last 8 years. The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear her faint, shallow, terrified breathing. The payment, I continued, twisting the knife of revelation, that adds up to $398,400, the payment that kept your precious house out of foreclosure 8 years ago. That payment. I stopped it. Amani, she whispered, her voice no longer confused, but trembling with true dawning horror. I had to, I said, my tone bright and infuriatingly helpful, mocking her earlier cruelty. I just couldn't afford it anymore. I had to pay the security deposit and 2 months' rent on this new apartment, and my funds were a little tight. You know, since you sold my old apartment out from under me to pay for Alicia's wedding, I guess you could say. I reallocated a family asset. She didn't speak. She couldn't. The weight of her own monstrous phrase turned back on her was crushing her. I have to go, Mom, I said, feeling nothing but a vast, cold finality. I have a lot of boxes to unpack. Goodbye. I hit the red end call button. I left her in the echoing silence of the financial ruin she had just discovered. I looked at my coffee cup. The first domino had just hit the second, and I knew the rest of them were about to come, crashing down. The moment I hung up, my phone exploded. It wasn't one call, it was a storm. First, Mom, I silenced it immediately. Dad, I silenced it. A new voicemail notification appeared, then another, and a third. A text message from Dad. Imani, call me right now. This is not funny. A text from Mom, reverting to the imperious matriarch, Imani Janelle Washington. You pick up this phone. This instant, you have made a terrible mistake. Call the bank. I didn't call the bank. I just sat on my floor, surrounded by boxes, and I imagined the scene. I imagined the panic setting in at the beautiful brick colonial in Alpharetta. The scene shifts to their pristine, cream-colored kitchen. My mother, Denise, is pacing hysterically in her silk robe, her hand shaking as she presses her phone to her ear. My father, Marcus, is slumped on a bar stool at the kitchen island, his face a ghostly white, listening on speakerphone. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Washington, but as I've explained, there is no glitch. A calm, professional voice, Mr. Henderson," a loan manager says from the speaker. "The payment was scheduled for the 1st. It was cancelled by the third-party payer on the 29th of last month." "What third-party payer?" Denise shrieks, her real estate agent composure completely gone. "We are the payers. Marcus and Denise Washington. We've been paying for years." There's the sound of a keyboard clicking on the other end. Mr. Henderson sighs. "Ma'am," he says, his voice cautious, "I am looking at the confidential loan modification agreement that was signed by you, your husband, and a third party 8 years ago. This agreement was contingent upon a guarantor, Amani J. Washington, assuming all monthly payments. As those payments have now officially stopped, your loan is in default." Marcus makes a small gasping noise. "Default? What does that mean?" We'll just pay it. It's 10 days late. We'll pay the $4,150 right now." "I'm afraid it's not that simple, sir," Mr. Henderson says, his voice turning to cold, final ice. "According to the acceleration clause in this agreement, the termination of the third-party payment plan triggers an immediate due-on-sale provision." "A what?" Denise whispers, her voice barely audible. "Asterisk. The full remaining balance of your loan is now due immediately." My father looks like he's been punched, the breath knocked out of him. The full balance. How much is that? How much?" More typing. "The current principal balance on your mortgage is $510,428. That amount is due within 30 days or we will be forced to begin foreclosure proceedings." Denise lets out a high-pitched, hysterical laugh. "500,000? That's ridiculous. We don't have—" "Wait." Her eyes light up with a sudden, manic, sickening relief. "Yes, we do. Marcus, the condo. The money from the condo sale. The $480,000. It's in the account. We can pay it." She scrambles for her laptop, pulling up their joint bank account, her hands flying across the keyboard. Asterisk. She stops. The screen glows on her face. Her face is white, terrified, and utterly blank. "Marcus," she says, her voice a low hiss of disbelief. "Marcus, where is the money?" My father won't look at her. He's staring at the granite countertop as if it's the most interesting thing in the world. The coward. The street Regis. "Denise," he stammers. "What about the street Regis?" They called yesterday," he whispers. "They needed the full catering and ballroom deposit, the full $300,000. And Alicia, her dress, and the planner. Chad's family wanted the platinum package. Marcus, what did you do?" Asterisk. "I transferred it," he bellows suddenly, his voice cracking with fear and pain. "I transferred it all, Denise, just like you told me to. You said to pay all the vendors immediately so they couldn't back out. You said it was all non-refundable. You even transferred the last $80,000 to the florist this morning." A coffee cup drops from Denise's hand and shatters on the gall. Pristine tile floor, mirroring the sound of their life breaking apart. They just stare at each other. "The $480,000 from my life savings is gone, spent, transferred, non-refundable, and the $510,000 bill for their own house is sitting on the table, due in full. They have no savings. They have no liquidity. They have nothing. They are completely, utterly, and entirely broke." The trap my mother had so perfectly set for me had just snapped shut on her, consuming her whole life. I let them panic. For 3 days, I heard nothing. The storm of angry voicemails and threatening texts went silent. It was a new kind of torture for them, a silence they knew they couldn't afford. They had no cards left to play. I had the money, or at least the knowledge of where it went, and more importantly, I had the truth. I spent those 3 days finishing my packing, purging their influence, moving out. Every box I taped up felt like a small, cold victory. I was starting over, bruised, yes, and poorer, but I was finally gloriously free. The 30 days they had given me were ticking down. I had just finished loading the last pathetic box into my rented storage unit when my phone rang. It was not my mother or my father. It was Alicia. I almost didn't answer, having nothing left to say to the golden child, but a cold, hard curiosity made me pick up. I hit the speakerphone button and set the phone on the passenger seat of my car. The sound that came through the speaker was not human. It was a shriek. A high-pitched, hysterical wail. You did this. You ruined it. I hate you. I hate you. I waited. I just let her scream, listening to the sound of a 2-year-old having a tantrum, combined with the panic of a spoiled woman realizing her platinum-plated world was on fire. Alicia, I said calmly, starting my car. I have no idea what you're talking about. My wedding. My house. You witch. What did you do to them? What did you do? Through her gasping, ugly sobs, I started to piece together the horrifying story. The story of what had happened at the Brick Colonial in Alpharetta that very morning. She and Chad had been out all day at their cake tasting, finalizing the 7-tier lemon raspberry creation. They had been discussing their honeymoon, a first-class trip to the Maldives that Chad's father was paying for. She was, in her own words, the happiest I have ever been. Then they came home. She told me they walked in through the garage, laughing and swinging their shopping bags, and they walked straight into hell. The first thing she saw, she said, was my father, Marcus, our strong, stoic, armchair-bound father. He was not in his chair. He was on the kitchen floor, in a heap, crumpled against the cabinets, sobbing. Not just crying, she said, sobbing, like someone had tragically died. My mother, Denise, the mastermind, was just standing there, frozen in the middle of the kitchen in her expensive silk robe, staring blankly at a piece of paper in her hand. Her face, Alicia said, was scary white, and on their custom-painted deep blue front door, there was a bright neon orange sticker. Alicia, in her spoiled ignorance, thought it was a prank. What is wrong with you people? She had screamed at them. Dad, get off the floor. You're being pathetic. Mom, what is that stupid thing on the door? My mother Denise didn't move. She just whispered, We're ruined. It's over. Alicia still didn't understand. She thought they were being dramatic. She thought this was somehow about her. Stop it. You're scaring me. You're ruining our good mood. And that's when my father, the man who had avoided my gaze, the man who had told me to stop being dramatic, finally looked up. His face was blotchy, his eyes swollen and red. He looked at his precious golden child, and he told her the truth. He told me, Amani. Alicia shrieked into my phone, the revelation twisting into a new kind of agony. He told me you paid for this house. He said you've been paying for agony. It forever. 8 years. 8 years. I corrected, my voice quiet, cold, and precise. $4,150 a month. 8 years. Alicia let out another wail. He said the bank is taking it. That the letter says they're selling our house. In 30 days they're kicking us out. They're putting us on the street. I gripped the steering wheel. 30 days. The universe had a dark, cruel sense of humor, ensuring their humiliation mirrored mine perfectly. And then he told me, she was choking on her own words now, the full magnitude of the betrayal hitting her. He told me about your money, the $480,000. He said, Mom stole it from you to pay for my... She stopped. The realization had finally hit her. All of it. The dress, the street, Regis, the flowers, the 7-tier cake, the honeymoon. It was all paid for with my blood, with my stolen money, and the check that had paid for it had just bounced, leaving a bill for $500,000. Alicia's voice instantly changed. The confusion was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated venom. You did this, she hissed. This is your fault. You set them up. You stopped paying. You knew this would happen. You were just jealous. Jealous. I asked, my voice dangerously calm, mocking her self-absorption. Yes, jealous of me. Of Chad, of my wedding. You couldn't stand to see me happy, so you decided to ruin all of us. You'd rather see your own family homeless than see me have one perfect day. I hate you, Amani. I will never forgive you for this. The phone call ended. She had hung up, unable to endure the consequence of her own greed. I sat in my car, in the quiet of the storage unit parking lot, and thought about her words. How my father had finally confessed, admitting they stole my money right after admitting I had been paying for their entire lives. He had finally told the truth, not to save me, but because their entire world had come crashing down and there was no one left to lie. 2. They were ruined. They had lost the house. They had lost the money. And they had lost their golden ticket son-in-law's respect. The dynasty my mother was so desperate to buy into had just evaporated. I put the car in gear, The storm I had started was now a raging hurricane, and it had just made landfall. The buzzing sound made me jump. It wasn't my phone. It was the old, yellowing intercom panel by my new apartment door. I had been in the new rental for less than 24 hours, and I hadn't even given anyone the address. I walked over and pressed the talk button. Hello? Hi. This is Mike, the lobby attendant. A hesitant voice came through the static. There's a group of people here for you. A family. My blood went cold. A family? Yeah, the guard said, the discomfort thick in his voice. They say it's an emergency. A Mr. and Mrs. Washington and Alicia Washington and a Mr. Thompson. They seem well. They're very upset. Ma'am, should I send them up? No, I said, my voice instantly firm. Absolute. Do not send them up. I'll be right down. I didn't go down. Not yet. I went to the small, grainy security monitor next to the intercom. I pressed the lobby camera button, and there they were, perfectly framed in the black and white static. The image was colorless, but the desperation was in full, sickening color. It was the four of them, huddled in the sterile, fluorescent-lit lobby of my cheap, new apartment building. They looked utterly disgusting. My father, Marcus, was a ghost. He was slumped on a hard, plastic lobby chair, his suit wrinkled, his gaze fixed hopelessly on the floor. He looked like he had aged 20 years in 3 days. He was a broken, hollowed-out man, finally paying the price for his cowardly enabling. My sister Alicia was vibrating with a toxic, manic energy. Her influencer perfection was gone. Her hair was a messy bun, her expensive clothes were rumpled, and her face was blotchy and red from crying. She was pacing back and forth in the small space like a cornered animal. And my mother, Denise, the queen, the master of ceremonies, the proud, polished, perfect real estate professional who cared more about appearances than blood. She was a wreck. Her hair was flat and uncombed. Her expensive blue dress was creased like she had slept in it. Her face was bare, puffy, and stained with tears. She was the one who had been frantically pressing the buzzer over and over. Then there was Chad. He was not with them. He was standing about 10 feet away next to a wilting lobby plant. He was completely untouched. His expensive blonde hair was perfect. His blue blazer was immaculate. He was not desperate. He was not sad. He was just watching them. His arms were crossed, and his face was a mask of cold, analytical disgust. He was an observer, judging his new, pathetic family. I let them wait for one full, agonizing minute. I watched my mother press the buzzer again, her hand shaking. Finally, I pressed the talk button. My voice echoed through their humiliation in the lobby. Can I help you? Denise visibly jumped. She rushed to the intercom panel, her face looming on my screen. Imani! Oh, baby! Thank God! Thank God, Imani! Honey, please, you have to let us up. We need to talk to you. I can hear you just fine from here, I said. My voice was as flat and cold as the concrete walls around me. Imani, please, she wailed, and the sound was raw, stripped bare. She was actually sobbing now, big, ugly, gasping sobs. The queen was groveling. Baby, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake. I didn't understand the finances. Your father, we just got so excited for Alicia. You know how she is. We made a mistake, baby. Please. A mistake? I said into the speaker, the word heavy with contempt. You call grand theft a mistake? It wasn't. I didn't. We can fix this, she stammered. And then the real, frantic reason for her visit came pouring out, unmasked by her fear. Imani, the bank they're taking the house. Our house. The neighbors, Imani, Mrs. Davis. From across the street she saw the orange sign on the door. She called me. She asked me if we were moving. I just watched her, the sight of her professional pride shattering. She wasn't crying because she had hurt me. She was crying because her neighbor had called her. And the people at church, she continued, her voice rising in hysteria. The pastor's auxiliary. I'm supposed to host the Christmas brunch. Imani, this will destroy us. This will destroy our name, our honor. Think of our honor. She was pressing her hands desperately against the glass door now, a pathetic mirror image of a prisoner begging for release. You have to fix this, Imani. You're the only one who can. Call the bank right now. Tell them it was all a misunderstanding. Tell them you'll start paying again. You have to. Just make it stop. Please, baby, please. I let her words hang in the empty lobby. I let her sobs echo on the screen. I could see my father slowly look up at the camera, a glimmer of desperate hope. I could see Alicia stop pacing, her eyes wide. I could see Chad just watching, detached and disgusted. I leaned in close to my intercom. "No," I said. The sobbing stopped instantly. "What?" Denise whispered, her voice a hollow shell. "What? What did you say?" I said, "No, I will not be calling the bank. I will not be fixing this." I watched her face crumble in real time. "Imani, you don't mean that. You're just angry." "I mean it," I said, and my voice was so cold it surprised even me. "I'm looking at you, Mom, and you are not sad because you hurt me. You are sad because Mrs. Davis saw the sign on your door. You are not here to apologize. You are here for a bailout." I took a deep, final breath. "You want to talk about honor? Let's talk about it. For 8 long years, I paid $398,000 to protect your honor. I paid to keep your secret. I paid to make sure your friends at church thought you were a pillar of the community." I watched my father flinch. I watched Chad's eyebrows raise, impressed by the exposed financial leverage. "And how did you repay me for that sacrifice?" I continued, letting the full weight of the crime fall on her. "You responded by stealing $480,000 from me to throw a party. You took my home, my savings, and my entire future, all to buy your shallow legacy." I leaned in one last time. "You said it yourself, Mom. Sometimes one person has to make a sacrifice for the greater good of the family. This time it's you." I let the words land. I watched my mother stumble back from the door, her hand over her mouth. I watched my father put his head in his hands. "I think," I said, my voice full of cold finality, "that I have sacrificed enough. We're done." For a second, there was just a stunned, terrible silence in the lobby. Then, from the side of the screen, Alicia launched herself forward. The grief and panic in her face had been instantly replaced by pure, blinding, self-absorbed rage. "Done," she shrieked, her voice muffled by the glass, but still audible. "You're not done. You can't be done." She slammed her entire body against the locked glass lobby door, rattling it violently in its frame. She wasn't begging anymore. She was attacking. "You let us in," she screamed, hammering on the glass with both fists. "You fix this. You are ruining my life. You selfish." The security guard in the lobby, Mike, audibly flinched at the sound of Alicia screaming. I could see him on the monitor taking a nervous step back from the group, his hand hovering over his own radio. He looked like he was about to call the police on my family. Alicia was completely unhinged. She was hammering on the thick lobby glass with her fists, her face distorted and purple with toxic rage. "You are a selfish witch, Imani. A selfish, jealous, ugly witch." I just watched her. I didn't press the talk button. I just let her perform her final, desperate, ugly tantrum. "You've always been this way," she shrieked, her voice cracking with pure venom. "My entire life. You were jealous when I got a car for my birthday. You were jealous when I was prom queen. You were jealous every time Mom and Dad told me I was the pretty one. You've been bitter since the day I was born." My mother, Denise, tried desperately to pull her back. "Alicia, stop it. You're making a scene." "I don't care." Alicia ripped her arm away from my mother. "She's the one making a scene. She's the one destroying our family. She couldn't stand it, could you, Imani? You couldn't stand that I was the one getting the $300,000 wedding, that I was the one marrying into the Thompson family." The root of her hatred, the core of her entire existence, was finally, violently exposed. "You just sat in your stupid little condo with your stupid little computer job and you rotted with jealousy. You saw me happy, and you just had to burn the whole world down. If you couldn't have it, nobody could. You'd rather see your own family homeless than see me have one perfect day." She was panting, her chest heaving, tears of pure, unadulterated spite streaming down her ruined face. My father was still a heap on the floor, sobbing into his hands. My mother was whispering, pulling at her daughter. "Stop it, stop it." Her own face was a mask of horrified shame, not shame for what she did, but shame for what the lobby attendant was witnessing. And then a new voice cut through the air. It was not loud. It was not emotional. It was as cold, sharp, and clean as a surgeon's scalpel. Enough. It was Chad. He had not moved from his spot by the dead plant. He had just watched. He had listened. And now he was speaking, delivering the final, brutal analysis. Alicia's tantrum stopped instantly, as if he had flipped a switch. She froze, her fist still raised, and turned to him. The rage on her face was instantly replaced by a dawning, terrible panic. "Chad," she whispered, terrified. He slowly uncrossed his arms. He looked at the three of them, at my weeping father on the floor, at my groveling mother, at his screaming, hysterical fiancé. He looked at them like a biologist examining a failed, contaminated experiment. "So, let me just make sure I have this straight," Chad said, his voice quiet, carrying effortlessly across the sterile lobby. "Let's just summarize the facts for my own clarification." He took one step toward them. My mother and Alicia flinched. 8 years ago, Chad began. "You, Marcus, and Denise, defaulted on your primary mortgage. You were going to be foreclosed on." "Correct," my father sobbed. My mother nodded, her body trembling. "Then," Chad continued, driving the knife deeper, "your other daughter, Imani, the one on the intercom, she secretly and without any legal obligations stepped in, and for 96 straight months, she paid your $4,150 mortgage. She paid, my God, she paid almost $400,000 of her own money to keep you in that house. Is that also correct?" Denise couldn't speak. She just nodded again, unable to lie in the face of the truth. "Okay, good. So, in gratitude for this," Chad said, his voice dripping with icy, cutting sarcasm. "Last week, you, Denise, as a real estate broker, fraudulently engineered the sale of her apartment. You stole, what was it, $480,000? Alicia started to speak. "Chad, no, it wasn't. I'm not finished," he snapped, and she went silent. "You took that stolen $480,000, Chad said, and you and Alicia immediately funneled it into a series of non-refundable deposits for what, Alicia? A $300,000 wedding for us." Alicia was shaking her head, silent tears streaming down her face. "Baby, please. It's not like that. And now," Chad said, hitting the final, inevitable point, "because Imani, the original ATM, has stopped refilling your account. Your own home is in foreclosure. The $500,000 note is due. The stolen money is gone. And you are, for all intents and purposes, completely and totally bankrupt. You're going to be homeless. Is that the gist of it? Did I miss anything?" No one spoke. The lobby was as quiet as a tomb. The only sound was my father's ragged, heartbroken breathing. Alicia took a desperate step toward Chad, trying to grab his arm. "Chad, baby, listen to me. It's her fault. She's the one who did this. She set us up." My mother looked at Chad, her eyes wide with a desperate, animal-like plea. "Please, Chad. It's a cash flow problem. It's not—" Chad looked at her. Then he looked down at Alicia. He looked at her hand, the one with his 5-carat diamond on it, clutching his expensive blazer. And with 2 fingers, he very calmly, very deliberately plucked her hand off of his jacket, as if he was touching something filthy. "Alicia," Chad said, and his voice was completely chillingly dead. "You told me your family was established. You told me your mother was one of the top brokers in Atlanta. You told me your father was a retired executive. You told me your family owned multiple properties and had significant generational wealth." He shook his head slowly, a small, cold, almost amused smile on his face at the depth of their delusion. "Assets, Alicia?" he asked, letting the truth twist like a knife. "Your mother is a con artist who just got her own family foreclosed on. Your father is a weeping mess on the floor of a lobby. And you're a greedy, screaming child who just got caught." "Chad, no!" Alicia screamed, the terror absolute. I love you. Don't do this." He just looked at her, his contempt overwhelming any pretense of affection. "Love? You don't even know what that is. You just wanted the party. You were willing to build our entire marriage on a foundation of theft and lies." He straightened his blazer, deliberately putting distance between himself and the filth of my family. "I can't," he said with a simple, final, devastating shrug. "I can't marry into this circus, this white-collar crime syndicate. My family's name, the Thompson name, will not be associated with fraud or theft or, frankly, this level of pathetic desperation." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "My lawyer," he said, his voice cold and commanding, "will be in contact with your mother about any deposits that were made in my name. We will be clawing back whatever we can." He then looked directly at Alicia, his eyes completely empty. And Alicia, my lawyer will also be in contact with you about the ring. I expect it to be returned in its original box by tomorrow morning. Do you understand me? Alicia just stared at him, her mouth open, the sound gone. He didn't wait for an answer. He turned, his expensive shoes clicking on the tile, and walked straight out of the glass doors. He didn't look back. He just left them there. For a full 5 seconds, Alicia was frozen. She just watched the door swing shut. And then the sound that came out of her was not a cry. It was a howl. A deep, agonizing, primal animal sound of pure, absolute loss. She didn't just lose a fiancé. She lost the ring. She lost the $300,000 party. She lost the status. She lost the Thompson name. She lost everything. She collapsed. Her legs gave out, and she fell to the dirty lobby floor in her expensive red dress, screaming and pounding the ground. My mother, Denise, and my father, Marcus, were statues. They just stared. They stared at the empty space where Chad had been. They stared at their golden child, who was now a writhing, screaming heap on the floor. They had lost their house. They had lost their money, and now they had lost their one great legacy. They were ruined, completely, utterly. I watched them on the grainy black and white screen. I watched them break. I watched all of their lies and ambitions and cruelty collapse in on itself in the lobby of my cheap new apartment. And I took my finger, steady and cold, and I pressed the end button on the intercom. The feed cut out. The lobby and all its noise was gone. All I could hear was the sound of my own quiet, steady breathing. I stood there in my empty new apartment, long after the image of my broken family had faded from the security monitor. The intercom was silent. The lobby, I assumed, was now a scene of utter despair. The security guard, Mike, would be earning his paycheck tonight, likely having to escort them from the premises. The adrenaline that had been pumping through me for the past hour drained away, leaving behind a cold, quiet calm. I walked to the window of my cheap rental. I didn't look down at the lobby. I looked out at the skyline of Atlanta, a city I had conquered, a city where I had built a life, a career, and a home that had been stolen. My family, in their greed and their toxic entitlement, had tried to tear down the one person who was holding them up, and in doing so, they had brought their own house, the one at 1422 Magnolia Drive, crashing down on top of them. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. My first thought was that it was one of them, a new number, a friend's phone, another pathetic attempt to beg or threaten. But the name on the screen made my heart stop. Tariq James Esquire, my lawyer. I picked up the phone. My hand was perfectly steady. Tariq, Amani. His voice was not calm. It was electric. He sounded excited. He sounded impressed. You are not going to believe the call I just had. I did what we discussed. I sent the formal notice of intent to Truist Bank. And I asked. I could hear him smiling. The hornet's nest is officially kicked. Their entire legal department is in a 4-alarm fire. You were right, Amani. You were 100% right. Tell me, I said, cold and demanding. Okay, Tariq said, taking a sharp breath. So, I sent the letter. I informed them that you, the de facto payer on the Magnolia Drive property for 96 straight months, were ceasing all payments. And then I told them why. I attached a copy of the closing statement, the one you dug up from the sale of your Buckhead condo, the one showing your mother, Denise Washington, as the selling agent. Amani, the bank's lawyers didn't just see a default. They saw a massive, flashing red light liability. Think about it, he said, his voice speeding up, energized by the financial carnage I had unleashed. Your mother isn't just a client. She is a licensed real estate broker. She used her professional license to commit fraud. She fraudulently sold an asset, your condo, and in doing so, she directly caused another asset, their asset, the Magnolia House, to go into default. She has violated about 6 different federal banking covenants. She has violated her fiduciary duty. She has exposed Truist Bank to a massive lawsuit, not just from you, but from the State Real Estate Commission. They are terrified of the discovery process. They are terrified of what else this investigation might uncover about your mother's professional practices. I listened, absorbing the cold, logical perfection of the trap. My mother thought she was being clever, playing the system, but she had been sloppy. She had mixed her professional life, the source of her status, with her personal crimes. They don't just want this to go away, Amani, Tariq said. They need this buried by yesterday. So, he said, a vice president of their legal department called me an hour ago. He was extremely cooperative. He wanted to make a deal. He wanted to solve this unfortunate family matter quickly and quietly. "What kind of deal?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The bank sees you, Amani. They see your 96 straight payments. They see your income. They see you as the reliable party. They see your parents as the massive ticking liability they are. So, they are making an offer. A hell of an offer. They are immediately proceeding with the foreclosure on 1422 Magnolia Drive. They are going to evict Marcus, Denise, and Alicia. Full stop. And they are officially offering you, and only you, the right to assume the loan." "Assume the loan." "You heard me," he said. "You just step in. You take over the remaining principal, $510,000. The house is yours. The deed is transferred. Your parents are out. You are in. It's clean. It's a total win, Amani. You get the house. You get justice." I walked back to the window, looking down at the curb where I had seen my broken family stumbling out. I thought about the offer. A $510,000 mortgage. I could afford it. I could get the house. But it felt incomplete. It felt like they were still getting away with something. The money. My money. The $480,000 they had laughed about. The money that was supposed to pay for Alicia's hideous couture dress. It was still gone. "No," I said into the phone. Tariq was floored. "No? What do you mean no? Amani, this is the victory. This is the goal. Take the win." "It's not the win, Tariq," I said, my voice quiet, but made of absolute steel. "It's a win. I don't just want the house. I want my money back. The $480,000, that is the part I care about. The house? The house is just the leverage." "Amani, I don't understand. How are you going to get the 480 back? That's a separate lawsuit against your mother. That's what we talked about. It could take years." "No, it's not," I said. The plan was suddenly there, cold and terrifyingly perfect. "It's not a separate lawsuit. It is all one big, messy, fraudulent transaction. And the bank is stuck right in the middle of it." "What are you going to do?" Tariq asked, his voice filled with impressed shock. "Here is what you are going to do," I said. "You are going to call that vice president back. You are going to thank him for his very generous offer to let me assume his $510,000 loan, and then you are going to tell him I'm not interested." Tariq was silent, stunned. "You're going to tell him I want to do something better. I don't want to assume his loan. I want to buy it. I want to buy the note, the full $510,000 in cash. His entire problem gone from his desk by Friday. In cash, Amani. You don't have $510,000. You just told me they stole your $480,000. Tariq sputtered, frantic. "Exactly," I said. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. A real, cold, genuine smile. "That's the leverage, Tariq. That's the checkmate. You are going to tell that nice vice president that I am eager to make his $510,000 problem disappear. I'll wire it to him by the end of the week. But unfortunately, my liquidity is a little tied up right now. My $480,000 is inconveniently in the bank account of a non-refundable wedding venue. A transaction that his bank is now fully aware was funded by fraud. You are going to tell him," I continued, "that if he wants his $510,000, he needs to help me get my $480,000 back. The bank has power I don't. They can call the title company that insured the fraudulent sale. They can threaten federal wire fraud charges. They can have my mother's real estate license revoked by 9 a.m. tomorrow. They can apply pressure that I, as a jilted daughter, cannot. They need to undo my mother's first crime so that I have the cash to solve their second crime." There was a very, very long silence on the other end of the phone. Finally, I heard a low whistle. "My God, Amani." And then Tariq started to laugh. It was not a polite laugh. It was a deep, genuine laugh of pure, impressed, professional awe. "You're not offering them a deal," he said, the smile clear in his voice. "You're not even negotiating. You are an absolute shark. You're giving them a loaded gun, telling them exactly who to point it at, and making them do all the dirty work for you just for the privilege of letting you pay them. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'll make the call right now. This isn't a lawsuit. This is a chess game, and you just called checkmate. 30 days. 30 days is all it took for their entire empire to crumble, and for a new one mine to rise from the ashes. The final scene did not take place in a dramatic courtroom. It took place in Tariq's quiet, professional office on the 25th floor, overlooking the city I now truly owned. My plan had worked more perfectly than I could have ever imagined. The bank, Truist, faced with a massive multi-million-dollar lawsuit and a federal investigation into one of their preferred real estate brokers, my mother did not just fold, they attacked. They did what I, as a daughter, could not. They unleashed their entire legal department. It was not a negotiation, it was a demolition. They called my mother, Denise. They informed her that her license was under immediate review for ethics violations and professional fraud. They called the IRS to flag the fraudulent sale. They called the State Real Estate Commission. Then they went after the money. They called the Street Regis. They called the couture dress shop. They called the florist. They informed every single vendor that the $300,000 in deposits they had received were the proceeds of wire fraud and were subject to immediate clawback. Chad's family, seeing a perfect, necessary opening to detach their good name from the scandal, joined the bank's efforts. They threatened their own lawsuits against the vendors for accepting fraudulent funds. The Street Regis, faced with a legal battle against a major bank and the Thompson family, folded in less than an hour. The $300,000 deposit was returned. The other vendors followed, terrified. The remaining $180,000, the money my parents had already spent, they had to find that themselves. I heard through Tariq that my father had to liquidate his entire retirement account. My mother had to cash out whatever stock she had left. They were bled dry, down to the last cent, just to make the number whole and avert federal charges. And now, here I was in Tariq's office. He slid 2 documents across the polished mahogany table. The first was a cashier's check made out to me. Amani J. Washington. The amount, $480,000, my money, finally reclaimed. And this, Tariq said, sliding over the second, much thicker document, is the prize. It was the deed. The bank, in its profound gratitude for me solving their legal nightmare and buying their silence, had sold me the $510,000 note on 1422 Magnolia Drive for a very, very significant discount. I had just purchased my childhood home, the asset my mother had sacrificed me for, using the very money she had stolen from me. I picked up the heavy, expensive pen. I signed my name, Amani J. Washington, owner. I owned my money. I owned my old apartment, which I had just gotten back through legal means, and now I owned their house. I was, in effect, a real estate mogul. You didn't just win, Amani, Tariq said, his smile wide with impressed awe. You bought the whole stadium. I drove to Alpharetta. It was the 30th of the month, the day the bank's eviction notice expired. My house looked different. The pristine lawn was slightly overgrown. A cheap, rented U-Haul truck was parked awkwardly in the driveway, half on the grass. I parked my car on the street and walked up the stone path. The first person I saw was my father, Marcus. He was trying to carry a heavy box labeled kitchen down the front steps. He was weak. The box slipped. He didn't try to catch it. He just let it fall, plates shattering inside. He cursed a low, weak sound, and then just sat down. He sat on the bottom step in his wrinkled, dirty clothes, put his graying head in his hands, a completely defeated man. The front door opened, and my sister, Alicia, came out. If my father was a ghost, Alicia was a gargoyle. She was almost unrecognizable. The golden influencer was gone. Her hair was scraped back in a greasy, messy bun. She wore old sweatpants and a stained college t-shirt. Her face was pale, puffy, and completely void of its former sparkle. She looked at me, and her eyes were just dull. A dull, lifeless, exhausted hatred. She was carrying a box of her old high school prom trophies. She didn't say a word. She just dumped the box on the lawn and went back inside. And then my mother, Denise, she came out holding a lamp. She froze on the top step when she saw me. She just stood there, the lamp in her hand, the queen of Alpharetta, the master of appearances, the woman who had smirked at me in the restaurant bathroom. She was just a tired, middle-aged woman in a stained jogging suit, getting evicted. I didn't speak. I just stood on my walkway. I watched them. I watched the ruins of the family that had tried to destroy me. Finally, Denise put the lamp down. She walked slowly down the steps, stopping about 10 feet away from me. Her eyes were empty. There were no tears left. You came, she said. Her voice was a dry, rasping whisper. Are you here to watch? Are you here to make sure we get out? Are you going to kick us out onto the street? Amani? I looked at her. I thought about her words in the bathroom. This time it's you. I thought about her laughing on the phone, thanking me for the present. I walked past her. I didn't answer. I walked up the steps and into the foyer of my new house. It needs paint, I said to myself. I turned and walked back out, stopping in front of her. She was watching me, her expression a terrified, confused mask. I reached into my new, expensive leather handbag, the one I had bought myself with my own reclaimed money. I pulled out a single folded document. "I'm not going to kick you out," I said. A sudden, pathetic, desperate hope flooded her face. She actually took a step toward me, her hand reaching out. "Oh, Amani," she breathed. "Baby, I knew it. I knew you couldn't. I knew you still loved us." I held up the paper, and she stopped. "This," I said, "is a lease agreement." The hope on her face vanished, replaced by a stunned, hollow confusion. A what?" "A lease agreement," I repeated, my voice clear and professional. "You want to stay in my house? You will pay rent, $5,000 a month. That's just under the current market rate for Alpharetta, but I'm feeling generous." Alicia, who had just come back to the door, let out a strangled scoff. "We don't have $5,000. You witch." "That," I said, not even looking at her, "is not my problem. I'm looking at you, Mom. It's a month-to-month lease. First and last month's rent plus a security deposit are due by the 1st of next week. That's $15,000 to move in." Denise was completely speechless. $15,000? We have nothing. We have nothing. You know that. You took. I didn't take anything. I cut her off. I took back what was mine. You will have to figure it out. You're a top real estate broker, aren't you, Mom? You know how this works. You know all about the law. You'll land on your feet. You always do. I held the paper out to her. She just stared at it. "Welcome to the real world," I said. "I hear Alicia is looking for a job. Maybe she can start filling out some applications. That's a lot of rent to cover." I dropped the lease agreement at her feet. I turned around, walked down the path, got in my car, and drove away. A week later, the scene shifts. I am in the house. My house. I am in the large, sunny upstairs bedroom that used to be Alicia's. The frilly pink furniture is gone, replaced by my sleek, professional standing desk. This is my new home office. I've just launched my own UI, UX design consultancy. My old clients have followed me. I am my own boss. My family was obsessed with legacy. They were obsessed with what the neighbors thought, with the name on the wedding invitation, with the honor of the family. They were so busy building a facade, they forgot to check the foundation. They never knew that I was the one, for 8 long, agonizing years, who was secretly holding up the beams. They tried to sell my future to pay for their past. They took a $480,000 apartment from me, and in return, I took a $510,000 house from them. I took an entire real estate portfolio. The greatest revenge isn't always about burning it all down. Sometimes it's about owning it all. It's about becoming the bank. It's about becoming the landlord. And the sweetest revenge of all, it's sitting in your new office, in your new house, holding the cash check for $15,000. From the very people who tried to make you homeless. They figured it out. It seems they really needed a place to live. Your true worth is never defined by those who undervalue you. My family saw me as a resource to exploit, never realizing I was the secret foundation holding them up. Emotional independence is vital, but financial leverage is the tool that reclaims justice. They stole her apartment, but by understanding their critical weakness, she took back an entire empire. If this story resonated with you, hit like and subscribe. Have you ever had to choose between saving your family and saving yourself? Let me know in the comments below.